Welcome to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and their journey. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the co-host of this show, and if you've listened before, every week we talk with smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies, and you can check out our archives to see some of our past episodes there. And before we get into this episode is brought to you by my company, Rise25, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with W Podcasts and content marketing. And of course, this episode also brought to you by EO San Francisco, which is the San Francisco chapter of Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a global peer-to-peer network of more than 20,000 influential business owners across 200 chapters, 60 plus countries. And if you're the founder, co-founder, owner, or controlling shareholder of a company that generates over $1 million a year in revenues, and you want to connect with other like-minded, successful entrepreneurs, EO is for you. And you can learn more by going to eonetwork.org/San Francisco or email us at admin@eosf.org. All right. My guest here today is Ashley Du. She's the founder and CEO of Meaningful Beginnings, which is a childcare provider in San Francisco, California. Established the company in about 2013 and has transformed it from a home-based daycare into a top-rated childcare center. And she also has been involved in commercial real estate as well. We'll get into that story as well. But she has an incredible story of overcoming a traumatic childhood. And I thought, Ashley, we could start there because you had a father who was a drug addict. And so you experienced a lot of trauma at a young age. And it's just amazing that you've made it out of that background and that history. But tell us a little bit about what that upbringing was like for you.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me, John. Going back into my childhood, let's see. So I am first generation American. My family came here fresh off the boat from Vietnam. They ran away from the Vietnam War, and actually, I don't know exactly how long it took them to get here, but in between, they actually gave birth to my older brother. And so one of my brothers, he's born in Macau, and that's a whole nother story itself. But coming here, they had little resources, did not have a lot. We have a big family, so they ended up having 5 kids, including myself. I have 4 older brothers. I'm the youngest and the only girl in the family. We were raised off of government subsidies in a tiny, tiny apartment. There was only one bathroom for all 7 of us.
Wow.
And yeah, growing up, I just saw how strong my mom was because she had to work 3 jobs to support all 5 of us. My dad was not around because he struggled with drug addiction. And while I was younger, there was never any stability. I never knew if I was going to go to school the next day because I don't know if there was going to be an argument or if there were going to be police that showed up at my house or, just lots of trauma and lots of things that I guess children at a young age should not see. And so that was pretty much my upbringing there.
That's such a tough upbringing. And I believe there was a story around your father would sometimes come to your school.
Mhm. Yeah, there was a time when I was 9 years old that I vividly remember. My teacher pulled me out of the classroom because my dad was outside. And when I saw my dad, he was like, "Hey, do you have any money?"
Mm.
And I'm like, no, Dad, I don't have any money. I'm only 9 years old." And he's like, "No, I know you have money. You definitely have money somewhere. Where is it at home? Tell me where. I'll go find it." And I just told him, like, "No, Dad, I don't have any money." And during that time, I think my teacher overheard it. And so at some point down the line, they called the principal and some other people, and they had to escort my dad out of the school. And when I actually got home that day, I went into my room and my room was flipped upside down, turn around. And there was, and I think he basically went into my room, just bombarded everything and tried to look for money. And there wasn't any. And he needed it to support his habits.
Mm. How did that experience affect your relationship with money? Sometimes, yeah, I've interviewed people that grow up in that kind of environment and they don't have money, so they really want it, and that drives them to go into business for themselves. Did you have that experience?
Definitely. And I'm still working through it today. It's that scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset. For me, yes, definitely. And because we grew up poor, I was always told that, oh, you can't afford that or we don't have enough for that and all of that. So that really goes into your core personality, like kind of like it becomes a part of you. And that's something that I'm working on overcoming. I've done a lot now. I've done a lot of self work and a lot of things. I read a lot of books and try to get myself out of it. But it's an ongoing battle still.
Right, right. It's hard for those lessons that are kind of baked in at a young age to rewire yourself in a
Hmm.
sense. Yeah. Now so you didn't experience entrepreneurship when you were growing up. You said your mother worked three different jobs. But you experienced entrepreneurship through a family business, your ex-husband's family business, which you got involved in, a construction company and then a restaurant company. Talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. So when I was married, he was in construction, but he let go of that company and they started their restaurant. Um, through that experience, I just watching how they were as entrepreneurs, I learned what I did not want to do in my own business when I worked, but when I decided that I wanted to open my own business. So I learned what I was not going to do. I also learned that you can only scale so far as a mom and pop business. And I learned that I did not want to have a business that was going to be mom and pop. I wanted to go corporate. I knew I wanted structure, I wanted systems. Because in the restaurant business, it was small. And whenever our cook called out sick or our busboy called out sick, guess who was the cook? Who was the busboy? I
Mm,
was the one washing the dishes. I would be the busboy, or I would be the bartender, the host, whatever. Like anytime we were short staffed, that was the one doing every single role in the restaurant. And that taught me what I did not want in my company. Like I do not want to be that key person. And I want to be the one that's building on the business and not in the business.
and so you end up starting a childcare center after your first child was born. Talk a little bit about the inspiration behind that, like how you decided to make it into a business.
Yeah, so I was studying child development while I was pregnant because I am the youngest in my family and I never held a baby before. So I'm like, okay, why don't I go to school to learn a bit about child development? And one of the classes in particular sparked interest in my mind, like, hey, I think this is something that every child needs. I don't think it's just for my own child. And so I decided, so when our tenants moved out in the downstairs of our home, all of these things I learned child development came out. And I'm like, why don't I just start a in-home daycare?
Hmm.
And so I literally Googled like how to start an in-home daycare. And I started calling people, like, the state government, whatever, all different people. I found out like little things here and there through online. And somehow, some way, I ended up opening my in-home daycare. And I also got all my toys and things like that through Craigslist. I did not have a lot of capital at that time. So I had to find all the free toys there were and all the discounted toys. And whenever I found anything, I would just bring it into the home. And that's how that daycare open. And originally, when I opened it, it was just to pay the mortgage. It was like a side hustle. It was not going to become a business. I love babies, don't get me wrong, but that was not the intention behind it. But eventually we got busy and it just grew. And then from there, I was like, okay, this is something that we could really support and create for the community. And I want to create a really safe space for children looking to thrive and grow. And, because I have my own kids, I know exactly what it is that I look for. And so I would hope that I'm able to bring the same to all the other parents out there.
So you said yourself you hadn't held a baby before. When you started, you're pregnant. Why do you think that it was successful in those early days?
Okay, well, I need to go back into that. It was not successful when I first opened, though.
Okay.
I was only 20 years old, and
And I'm
it was
assuming it was just you and a handful of babies in the beginning.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the first 6 months, nobody signed up with me, and it was all because of my mentality. I think I did not have the confidence at that time, and so I had a bunch of tours. People would come through the door and they're like, I love the space. It's beautiful. But they wouldn't sign up. And I think it's because they just didn't believe in me because I didn't
Mm,
believe in myself.
mm,
And so it was like a self-esteem issue. But finally, a family gave me a shot, and that family really believed in me. And from
mm.
that point on, I just just shot up and I became like so good at selling my school basically. And everybody signed up after that.
Hmm.
But in the beginning, I was the one that did everything though. Like I was the cook, I was the cleaner, customer service, enrollment specialist, the manager, like everything you can think of. I did everything in the business. And they eventually hired my first assistant. I learned how to delegate, and then that led into more growth.
So similar types of lessons that you got from the restaurant business, the mom and pop model that you kind of figured out that, you don't want to be the one who's doing everything.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so you actually end up hiring people, you end up start opening another location. Was that a big leap for you, opening another location?
There's a lot of backstory into it, but I'll save that for another day. But basically, we grew, we got very busy, and that was also in the middle of me transitioning out of a divorce, and the home was inside, the daycare was inside our home. So it's just everything happens for a reason. And so I decided, okay, I need to move my daycare. I can't have it inside the home anymore. And originally, I was looking for another home, but then I decided, like, why don't I just take this leap of faith and go into a commercial center instead? I could have X amount of kids because in-home daycares, you can only have max like 12 kids if you have a large
Mm.
center. And so, I mean, sorry, a large in-home daycare. Whereas if you have a center, you could have like 50, 100, 200. It depends on the square footage. And so, yeah, I mean, it was definitely a leap of faith, but something in me knew that I was going to make it. Like, I just knew it for some reason. I was so fearless and I was like, you know what? I just know that I'm going to make it. And no matter what comes my way, I'm going to do it. And so I did it. And it was scary. Like, construction took double the time. The amount of money and capital that I thought it would take was actually also double the amount. And
And did you
there
have
were
to like retrofit, build like small, the mini sized toilets and stuff like that? Like, was it a major remodel?
No, with my first one, no, it was not a major remodel.
Uh,
But it was still a remodel, and it
yeah.
was my first time doing anything like that. But the hardest part was really like the regulations, because from an in-home daycare to a commercial center is completely different. You're
Mm,
basically going from mom and pop to corporate,
mm,
so all the regulations are different. And yeah, I mean, that was a huge learning experience.
yeah. So you do that, and then so you have a second. So is that's your primary location? Then you opened another location after
Mhm.
that. So
Yeah, so in
and
20,
that seems like a big leap because then okay, you've got one commercial center and you can be there. You have your team, but then opening a whole nother center seems like a big leap.
Yeah, so 2019 was when we officially opened our first commercial location. It started doing well. We got very busy, and during COVID, oh man, so there's another story, right? Because it was
Yeah,
2019 when we opened,
yeah,
then COVID
yeah.
happened, and we're like,
Oof.
okay, what is going on, right? And we were not sure how it was going to impact us, but it was actually a blessing in disguise for us because majority of the daycares closed. So it was 98% of daycares in the Bay Area closed down.
Wow.
And so
But
there
you
were only
didn't?
11 no. And so we only
Why?
closed for 2 months because we served a lot of essential workers, employees. So a lot
Okay.
of our clients and our families, they were doctors, nurses, and people in the medical field.
Was that just a coincidence, or were you located near hospitals, or what? Why was that?
Well, I had this partnership, well, not partnership, but someone from UCSF, they used to send a lot of students to us. And so that was just something that kind of naturally happened.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Wow. So
and
it
then
ended up kind of probably saving you.
yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And that was our best year. Well, during
Wow.
that time, of course, now we kept growing, but during that time, yeah, we had our highest net profit margins, all that
Wow.
stuff. And I was like, yeah, that saved us. Um, and then in 2022, we opened our second location. And that's a whole nother animal itself because now I have to make sure that both locations are cookie cutter and that our systems are streamlined and operations are clean. And yeah, and so here we are now, and we are securing our third location now, and the
Wow.
plan is to continue growing more locations.
And now along the way, you had a bit of a setback. You had a person who you say that you delegated too much to that person, and that person ended up, I guess, bad mouthing the center, and you end up having a lot of turnover, staff turnover, and then family turnover. Talk about that challenging period.
Mhm. I'll start with going back to mistakes that I've done. So when I first incorporated, I thought that the key is to delegate. And yes, it is to delegate, but I think I delegated ineffectively and I basically gave too much power to my leadership team. And specifically with my first center, I gave too much power to one person and they ended up embezzling money. So
Ooh.
that's a lesson that I learned.
Ooh.
And we had to cut those ties. But then because that happened, I learned how to create a strong systems. So now I have our own fractional CFO team.
Hmm.
But if that had not happened, I wouldn't have done that, right? Because then I
Right.
realized, oh, I need someone else to manage the money. So that's one part. Then my second mistake that I did was, again, I did not give her too much power, but I was not involved enough. I delegated, but I was not involved. I basically let it go and assumed that they were going to be able to take care of things that I needed. And that was my fault because I just let go of too much control again. And yeah, basically things, and also the issues that I was not the one that hired them. And that's what I've learned. If I'm not the one that hired them, I never built rapport with them. There's no relationship. So why do they have any reason to try to say anything good about us? Because I've never built this culture with them. And I
Mm.
didn't know that. I ran the company very like vertical. I did not run it like a web style, it was like a hierarchy type of system.
Hmm.
And that was something that I learned. And yeah, this key employee basically left, went to a birthday party, said a bunch of stuff about us. Then we had 5 team members quit in one classroom. And then we had a bunch of families leave. So over a course of 2, 3 months, we lost 40% of revenue.
Wow.
And for 8 to 9 months, we were consistently negative. And I'm not talking about negative small numbers. It was large, like 5-digit numbers.
Wow.
And yeah, you can imagine the stress that I went through. And I've never gone through such a down before.
Mm.
In my whole 10 years of being open, I've never once had a negative time. Like,
Yeah.
we're a service business, we're high profit margins. So I've never really experienced that type of thing. And when I did, I was like, okay, what are we going to do? I haven't thought, am I going to sell the school? Am I going to let go of this one? Like, what should we do now? Because we're running out of money. And how long can I keep going for? Right? Like, how long can I keep feeding this
Right.
beast that is just taking up so much of our capital? And everything that we've made basically went into this loss time. And so it was really challenging. Like, my mental health was not there. There were days I did not want to wake up. I was just, yeah, in a really dark time.
What did you do in order to right the ship?
And during that time, I drank a lot.
Mm.
And that I do not recommend doing that. And that only made my anxiety a lot worse. And I just kept putting off my problems. Like, I was um, procrastinating. Um, but really, what helped me was finding faith in myself and just believing that everything happens for a reason and that it will get better. I just kept thinking something within my voice, something, a little voice within myself was like, this too shall pass, and there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm.
And so I just kept building. I dug into the business. I went into the business because I was not in the business before. So I went into the business and I just dissected everything and looked at what is going on, right? Because the company started growing and it became messy and I just let it do its own thing. I did not go in to fix the systems. We were like a company with, it was like a body without bones. Right. It was
Mm.
just so messy in the back end. So I went in and I cleaned up everything, streamlined everything, and just gave everybody very specific roles. And also, like, my key people that had too many roles, I took that away and I offloaded it to virtual assistants.
Mm. Hmm.
And that just changed everything. And then we became super streamlined, super efficient. And yeah, and after 9 months, we became profitable again. And
Mm.
now we're back on that trajectory. And that's why now we're back in growth mode. And yeah, I mean, it's something that I wish that people don't ever go through, but I feel like you do have to go through it to
For
really
sure.
learn, yeah,
Yeah,
how
you
to like
learn the
run your company.
lessons. Yeah, everyone
Yeah.
says that, right? That's the hard parts, it's the setbacks that are the big learning lessons, not the victories.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
and I realized that we could actually operate on much less than I thought that we needed. Like,
Yeah.
when money's coming in, it's like, oh, it's fine. Just keep spending it, using it for this, using it for that. It's okay, right? But when it's not, that's when you really need to like buckle up and understand like where are we losing the most money, right? And where are we spending on expenses that are not necessary? And so
Yeah.
when I started cutting out all these expenses, then I realized like, oh, we actually did not need to operate at such a high level of expenses. We could have
Yeah.
operated on much less. We would have had a much higher profit margin. So if I have any advice is to watch your cash flow, watch your money, or it's going to slip away.
Good advice. You mentioned about delegating, but also, keeping track of how you delegate. How do you strike that balance between delegating and also, keeping eyes on everything that's going on inside of your business?
Good question. It's ongoing. It first comes with trust, right? Like, I think you really need to trust. And so before I used to say, like, oh, I have to trust them, but it's a two-way street. They have to trust you too. And if you're able to build this relationship with your key person that you delegate things to, I feel like there's going to be this really strong respect level. And um, it all comes to relationships first, is what I'm trying to say. You have
Hmm.
to build this relationship in order to delegate fully. If you don't have this relationship of trust, is not going to work.
Yeah.
Um, and keeping eyes on everything, that's what I've learned now. That's exactly what I do. I built a strong culture with my team and I built a relationship with my key people. And now we respect each other. And I think that's the key thing, the relationships.
Yeah. Um, you mentioned about alcohol. You were drinking too much alcohol, and you've since quit drinking alcohol, I think. And you have this background. A lot of times when people have addiction in their family history, then it either repeats itself or they, have struggles with it. Can you talk a little bit about how you cut that out of your life? Because I know there's a lot of people that struggle with that.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you like some amazing story. But really, I have struggled with it since I was younger. And especially because like everyone that I was with, like my friends, they all drink heavily. My family drinks heavily. My ex-husband drinks heavily. So I've been surrounded by alcohol growing up, and that was just a normal thing for me. Luckily, I never touched anything else. Like for me, my vice was just alcohol, and it got to a point where it no longer serves me. I realized that I don't want the hangovers anymore and I was not efficient and my anxiety got so bad. Like I would get really bad anxiety attacks after a whole time of binge drinking. Like and
Mm.
I was not the alcoholic where I had to wake up and drink. I was the type of alcoholic where like if I started drinking though, I don't stop. So
Mm.
I would keep drinking and drinking and drinking, and then maybe it might last like 3 days, 4 days, 5 days of
Wow.
drinking. Yeah,
Mm.
like for example, I
Yeah.
would drink and then I'll go to sleep. I'll wake up hungover. I'm like, oh, I'll drink a little bit just to like get rid of the hangover. Then we'll go to happy hour, lunch, whatever. And then we'll just keep going for like
Mm.
4 or 5 days straight. Then after that binge drinking, like my body is going through withdrawal and I would
Yeah.
get really bad anxiety attacks. And
Mm.
it got to a point where I was like, this is not worth it.
Mm.
And it was affecting just my productivity and my clarity and a bunch of stuff. So,
Yeah.
and then one day, like, yeah, it just happened overnight. It was like a snap of a finger. I'm like
Really?
a light switch. I make decisions like that. And so I just said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna stop. And that's what
Yeah.
happened. And I just stopped and I just haven't
Yeah.
drank. And it's been almost 6 months now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave up alcohol for last January's dry January. And then at the end of the month, I was like, I like this. I'm gonna keep on going. And now it's been almost a year and a half. And
Wow.
I agree with you. It's I love drinking. I enjoyed it. Still, probably would if I did it tomorrow, but really I'm enjoying the way it makes my body feel.
Hmm.
Um, I want to ask you about you also started a commercial real estate company as well to put another thing on your plate. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so after the divorce, I jumped into real estate because I wasn't sure what I was going to do if I was going to keep running my in-home daycare because again, the in-home daycare was inside our home. So I needed another outlet, and I was always intrigued by real estate. Like I knew that most the wealthiest individuals are all heavily invested into real estate, so I wanted to be in that industry. So I joined real estate and I did very well my first couple of years. And that's also how I opened my commercial centers because I was rookie of the year. I did well. I made a lot of money in selling residential homes. And so then I put that into my commercial daycares. And in 2019, while I opened my commercial daycares, I also, at the end of the year, joined partners, well, joined yeah, I joined with two partners to open a commercial real estate brokerage. And the reason why I did that is because I learned that residential real estate is a lot more emotional. And I am definitely a little less emotional. And I'm a numbers person. Like, I love just looking at numbers, dissecting numbers. And if it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And yeah, we joined partnerships and we decided to open a commercial real estate brokerage. And I think the lessons I've learned there is also is just amazing. And I brought so much of that into my business today.
How do you balance both of those? Got very different types of businesses, commercial real estate brokerage and the childcare centers.
Well, childcare center's good thing is that I have a lot of great people and I delegate. So they run the day to day. I'm not in the day to day. I just work on the business. So I get a lot of time there. My business is pretty much self-brand. Like if I went on vacation for a month, it will be fine. And with the commercial real estate piece, I have two partners there. So we have different roles and I know exactly what my role is. So they do more of like the legwork and, closing deals or dealing with the agents and so forth. I'm more on just like strategic operations.
So you get to stay in working in the numbers, as you like to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool. Ashley, this has been great. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about meaningful beginnings and your commercial real estate? And you also have a YouTube channel where you share the highs and lows of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I am building out my personal brand right now. So if you'd like to follow me, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Ashley Du. You can also find me on IG, Instagram. My Instagram handle is in Ash's World, and also YouTube in Ash's World as well. So feel free to connect with me there. I look forward to meeting all of you.
Great. Ashley, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast. This episode is powered by Rise 25. Please subscribe and check out future episodes.